Hello and welcome to Produced By. Just quickly before we begin, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting it by joining our Patreon. You can choose from a list of memberships and will receive some exciting rewards. Thank you, and back to the episode. Hello Reece, thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So Reece, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name's Reece. I've been working as a camera operator in the probably branded content and sports sector of the industry is the best way to describe it. For 6.5 years, started off doing a lot more branded content, and the last few years have kind of moved more into sports, specifically American football. So a lot of my work now is kind of operating and like shooting, PDing within American football.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Can we start with your background? Where do you come from?
So background. So I was from the early days. Like I was born in Essex, raised in Essex. Then when I was younger, I actually wanted to be an actor. Like all the way up until I was like a teenager, I was just dead set on wanting to be an actor. And then I got to around 15, 16 when I was in secondary school, and the first video I really ever made was a Beastie Boys Sabotage parody music video, which was for my media class. And
Is
the
it on
kind of
YouTube?
it is somewhere. I message my mate every couple of years, and I just say to him like, "Yeah, do you still have the link?" And I think he's still got the page up, so I'll have to find it and send it to you. But yeah, no. So basically, started with that, and like went from being like loving the acting side to then like, oh, how you can show like comedy through like different shots or different actions and that, and sort of started this transition over into being more into the shooting side, and then studied media at college, and then when I was in college got even more into just like the camera side specifically, and then after that went to Middlesex Uni, studied for 3 years, basically was like, I'll give myself a chance to one, grow up a bit, and two, just enjoy myself and sort of party for a few years and kind of figure out, you know, where I wanted to go in the industry. And it became clear to me quite quickly when I went to university that like the camera was what I enjoyed doing. Like I did a couple of like short film projects that I directed and just could never get my head like into that as much. Whereas like camera, I've always kind of been more of a nerd with, and more of kind of enjoyed doing that. So I just spent the rest of the time focusing on that basically.
Yeah. And what was it that changed your mind from acting to being behind the camera?
There was one thing, which is I had quite an intense drama teacher when I was at secondary school. So she was great, but just it was a lot to deal with. So I kind of like wasn't looking for a way out, but it deterred me ever so slightly. And then it was just literally going into a project which was, let's say, this Beastie Boys parody, and not really knowing all that much about, you know, how you shoot and all that, and just kind of making it up as you go along. And you know, we just filmed it around the school and working out different ways to do shots and just come up with ideas to try and add to the humor of it was great, rather than just kind of, you know, reading like a script or reading something like that. Like it was nice to be on the other side of it, of just having a camera and picking locations and going, okay, actually if we do this shot here and this shot here, we can show some humor there. If we do this here, then that'll be more intense. You know, a close up here works to show this better, a little whip pan and reveal. And it was just like all this kind of stuff that it's like, I didn't really know. You almost didn't know why it would work. You didn't know why just choosing these certain shots conveyed that in a better way, but it just kind of was instinctive. And I guess that's kind of been the thing I've taken through like my career, and that is the kind of instinctiveness. And I guess it was probably that instinctiveness in the first place that kind of led me to then really liking it. And I suppose I never really got that with like the acting side, because I never did anything like apart from at school acting wise. It was never like I did any like auditions outside of it or that. So it wasn't like I was an A-lister who decided to like change my mind or something. It was very just like aspirational. And I think that the kind of instinctiveness and the joy I felt doing that, just that first small project, even at secondary school, was more than I kind of ever got from anything acting related. And then it just kind of solidified that need to want to do something different and kind of focus on that instead.
Yeah. So when you went to Middlesex, did you already go there with the mindset that you want to focus on camera, or were you still open to everything and discovered it along the way?
I was open to things. I think that I definitely had a kind of a sort of mindset rooted in camera, and it was more of a case of going, okay, this, you know, I want to go to university, build up a bit of a better show reel, which I don't feel like I can do right now, just as I am outside of university. So I'll do that, focus on building up a show reel, and then, direct some bits and go from there. So, it was always kind of just directing, writing, and cinematography were kind of my focuses. And then I think it just, as that first year went on, I just kind of kept shooting stuff and more stuff. And then, my focus would be on the shots and lighting and things like that rather than anything else. And then, it was in the second year of uni. I directed one short film, which was, I'm fine to say, terrible. And I was like, it's all good. It's like, it wasn't very good at all. And I'm happy to say that. But the good thing about that experience was it made me realize that, okay, directing's not for me. Like with the work I do at the moment, like it's, some shoots, there's more of a directorial element where it's, you're shooting, but also coming up with ideas and also, directing the people you're working with. And that's from that side, that's great. But the full fledged like directing with the projects I just could never really get into.
Yeah. So in the third year, were you working as a DOP on the main project?
Yeah. So I literally third year, all I did was shoot. I DOP'd 2 or 3 films. I think it might have been 2, and then did a bunch of like supplemental like camera rolls on other projects as well. So just completely focused on that basically.
And how did those films turn out? Were you happy with the final results?
They were good, yeah. So the two main ones I did was there's a film called The Langford Loop, which was directed by a friend of mine, Baden Birds. As I say, when I've listened to this before, I know that Potty the Plant came up, so he basically was one of the writers on that, and then wrote something slightly darker for third year, which is all about time travel and all that. And so that was one of them. And then the other one was called, it was like a short doc basically called So Others May Live. And there was a girl on my course whose dad was in the Portuguese Air Force, and so she wanted to do a story basically about him and the Air Force and all that over there. And so we did like a short doc there, which was great because I got to spend basically 10 days in Lisbon filming in helicopters and all that. And then I think the end result was really cool. And I did it right. I got nominated for something which was called a Monkey Bread Tree Award for cinematography. So it's just like an awards like.
Is it specifically for cinematographers?
No, it was just a like, I don't know what you call them because it wasn't a festival, but I guess it was just like I don't know how to describe it, but basically like a place, and there was just nominations for writing and all this kind of stuff throughout like student films and all that. And so I got nominated for a cinematography award for that, and then another one for some random festival in California, I think, for So Others May Live. So I was like, as a 21-year-old student who's just like figuring stuff out, I was like, okay, hopefully that means I'm on the right track. They were, I was quite happy with them at the end, and they were a good like learning step to kind of go from.
Yeah, and I guess it's good to boost your confidence that you are good in your craft.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think the thing is, like, I came into this industry in that like so cold in terms of like I didn't know, there's no family members of mine or anything like that who were in the industry, so it was kind of a real go through university and just figure it out kind of way. And then you kind of are always doing your best to kind of learn and figure stuff out and keep on the right track. And I suppose it was a bit of a confidence boost of, okay, at least I know my level of knowledge is going to increase into the future, probably forever, with this work and with all that. However, at least I know that I've improved, and I'm starting to understand these things a bit more than I did 2 years ago when I first started university, or even a year before.
And before I forget, when we move out from the topic of university, what's the advice that you would share for either students or people who want to study from your experience?
I think I very much saw university as an opportunity to kind of figure things out. I think specifically with a film course, like a year after you finish university, 99% of the projects people do are forgotten about. You're moving on to different things. And so it's good to kind of use the university as a chance to kind of experiment with things. Like when I directed the film I did in second year, I threw myself like massively into that, and I tried to do some weird things with like lighting and the way I directed actors and all this. And I found out very much so a lot of things that didn't work, but also in the process I found out, the focus on the things that did work and why these things didn't work, and and why I didn't want to direct and why I wanted to focus on what I wanted to do. So it's kind of having that humility and understanding to try the different things and make those mistakes and go a bit random with what you're going to do, and understands that there's going to be a lot of stuff you're going to do that's terrible, and you'll look back on it. I mean, I look back on stuff I did 2 years ago and think it's terrible. So looking back at university, I'm like, at the time you think it's amazing. So I think it's understanding that, especially if you want to do this as a career, that university exists as its one thing, and throw yourself fully into it, try things out, and try and work out what you really want to do and what you're really passionate about, and then you can kind of make that your focus from there. And in the process, don't worry about it if you look at everyone else's films. Like, I worked with some people then who were massively better than me at cinematography, and a friend of mine still now, like, his lighting's always been incredible and the way he shoots is incredible. And it was like, it'd be easy to, when you're at university, you're always going to be around people who are ahead of you, and then people who are not as good as you within those things. There's so many different experience levels, and it's kind of realizing that, just experiment with stuff and stay kind of on your own path, and understand that you're, at the end of the day, regardless of if you're working with someone who, when university finishes, doesn't do anything in the film industry, and if you're working with someone who goes on to win Oscars or whatever, regardless, those two things don't affect anything that you do. It's good, obviously, to stay friends with the person who, wins the Oscars, and like keep them as a contact and chat to them, of course, and like use it as a good chance to network. But it's kind of like, it's fine to be in your own lane, in your own path, and take things at the pace that kind of works for you, and in the process just experiment and kind of figure out more what your focus wants to be, what avenue you want to take within the industry, because there's quite a few.
Yeah, I like this advice, because I feel like from my experience that I should have experimented more, and should have taken advantage of the resources, facilities, people, time, and everything. So that is something I can definitely relate to, and confirm that it's a good advice.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's handy, because it's easy to focus on everything around it. Always like look at something you're shooting and go, oh, why doesn't this look like something they're doing? Why doesn't this look like this $100 million budget movie that I've taken references from? It's like, no, it's fine. You're learning stuff. It's all good. People generally, like, when you're starting out, as long as you in the industry kind of have that humility, and you're using the projects that you've done within university to just promote that potential that you've got, then I think people can see that, and they'll they're not going to look at it and go, oh, well, you've just got a bunch of student films. They're going to look at it and go, oh, I see the potential here. Oh, okay, I see this. Oh, this works. Oh, I see that. So
Yeah, I agree. So when you were about to graduate, how did you start thinking about your way into the industry?
So I, in a way, was lucky, but in a way also grafted. So basically, end of second year of university. So during second year of university, I worked on this short film called Potty the Plant, which I say you've had people talk about before on this. And I basically,
by the way, great film, especially if you consider it a student film. So I definitely recommend to people to watch it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, look at, like, it's funny because I talk about this. So basically, on that project, like, it kind of, the guy who was supposed to DOP it ended up having some like personal, like, family issues around the time, and so wasn't able to, unfortunately, commit himself to the project as much as he wanted to. And so in the process, me and then a friend of mine, Rowan Lenehan, kind of stepped up, and we in the end kind of said we co-DOP'd it, but it was kind of basically like he did a lot of the camera work, and then I did basically all the lighting, and there was one scene that I shot, and then other than that it was all him. So it was like technically co-DOP, but it was a bit of a kind of just like Calmot plus Gaffer situation. But regardless, like, we just did what we did to kind of get it done. But yeah, it's funny because we'll look at it now and just like rip it to shreds in terms of the stuff that we did on it, because as you progress, you just, like I said, you notice stuff and go, why on earth did I do that? Why did I light it like that? That's so complicated. But yeah, so basically when we'd finished this project, like, it then got nominated for a few awards and ended up winning a Royal Television Society Award, a London, like, regional one. And we just kind of basically got invited to like a few networking bits off the back of that. So I spoke to a woman from Film London, and had some chats with her off the back of kind of that. And then there was a company, which is one of my clients now, that basically held this kind of branded content, like masterclass, basically. So it was the two like directors of the company, and then a few of their staff, and then a freelancer they use quite a lot. And I had no idea what branded content was. Like, as far as I was aware, it was basically like you do, film, TV, commercials. That's kind of it. And I didn't really think of it other than that, and like documentary. And then basically off the back of this, like I found out all about this whole side of doing, content for brands, for like social media, for internal parts of their companies, all that kind of stuff. And I just used it as an opportunity to go, okay, this could be good, and just walked up and chatted to both of the guys who ran the company, and just tried to build a bit of rapport and chat with them, and chat about all that. Got them on LinkedIn, and then I met up with one of them for a coffee, just told them what I was after, chat to them about, work and that kind of stuff. And then they basically got me onto a project. And then it was basically, I was down on the call sheet as third AC. And I was like, I've not been in the industry, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist. And I was like, okay, it's fine. It's going to be something camera related, and then like maybe a bit of more running than anything. Like, so that's good. I was like, but whatever, I've got some work, I'm happy regardless. Turned up, and it was basically this. It was this like hairdressing tutorial type shoot for a promotion for a company. And when I got there, I was just helping set up with things and all that kind of stuff. There was two cameras. There was the DOP on one, and then there was the second one, which is the director. It was the guy I'd met at this networking thing that they put on. He was the other one who was going to be operating the camera. And then for the first setup, literally DOP is on A cam, and he turns and looks at me and goes, "Oh yeah, do you mind just jumping on B cam and keeping it sharp?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." Just like ran over, like jumped on, like did what I did and all that, and then it was all good. So basically, what had happened in a kind of serendipitous way is he had been at a festival like not long before that, and he was shooting and he'd hurt his back. And so we jumped on for the first like few handheld setups, but then his back was giving him pain. So he kind of just said to me, "Oh, would you mind jumping on B cam and just this?" And then he was like, I could just sort of sit and direct. And yeah, then I just ended up operating for the full 2 days after that, and just stayed operating through it. And then because of that, then they just became a client, and I just kept doing more and more for them. And then through that, met other people, and then just kind of built like a bigger client base off the back of that.
Yeah, that's awesome story. Like, because you can see that people shouldn't underestimate the basically power of the student films, because thanks to the success of that film, you got such opportunity, and then because you could be a cameraman, look how it helps you. It's great. Yeah. So have you been working with them throughout the third year as well?
Yeah, so that was so basically I did those projects over the summer, did quite a few projects for them over the summer. And then third year was this kind of balance between working with them and then, trying to do my university studies at the same time. But it was just the level of knowledge I was able to glean from the people I was working with that client just helped so much during third year. And I think, that also helped with the whole camera side of it. But yeah, you're right about what you said about the kind of reason I went to university wasn't necessarily worried about the grade. I wanted to just build up a show reel and kind of figure things out and all that. I did because I so early on knew that I wanted to focus on camera. I was at least able to build up a decent enough show reel to kind of show to people to get work, and with the understanding that I'm a 20-year-old who is learning this whole process, and I'm willing to learn. I just need that opportunity, and kind of took it from there, and then went from there. But yeah, no, third year I was still doing things for them in the odd shoots. So then I was lucky that kind of when third year finished, then it just kind of launched up in terms of the amount of work. And yeah, they're still a client to this day, nearly 7 years later. So that's quite cool. Yeah.
So did you know throughout your third year that you are kind of in a comfortable position, that you knew that once you graduate, you're going to have enough, of opportunities to work in?
I think this is probably where my second piece of advice is. I don't think I've ever in my entire career felt in a comfortable position. Not from I get like more than enough work, but I've just always had this thing in my mind of I want to focus on improving, and I want to focus on getting more clients, and want to get bigger projects. So I kind of had this thing in my mind of this is this is great, However, I want to do more work for these guys, then I want to do, more work for them and other people. So it was good to have that, like, kind of anchor point in terms of someone that you could rely on. Like if I ever needed advice, I could go to them and say, oh, I'm doing this and all that. And through that, like I do operating work, but then I'd also do assistant work. So I'd be working with these great DOPs who I'd just be kind of gleaning all the knowledge in the world off of. And so I think it was good to kind of have the way I saw it was just an opportunity to, learn more and also, hopefully get more work for them and, hopefully get more work with other people. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's always good I always treat every single shoot that I'm doing, every single thing I'm doing, as important as regardless of what it is. If it's like a little, 10-minute interview or if it's like a longer doc form or whatever, like even then and even still now, basically, 7 years later than that, I still just kind of try to see it as I'm in a comfortable position in terms of I'm getting enough work, but I don't want to ever take that for granted. And I always want to make sure I'm, keeping on learning and keeping on trying to get more work and keeping on, building those relationships.
Yeah. So once you graduated, did you basically continue working with those clients, or did you reach out to your network for work, or what did you do once you graduated actually?
It was mainly that client. Like I just sort of would do tons for them, and then there was a couple of people that I met whilst doing tons for them. Like I was always freelance for them, but it was like there was a decent amount of time where you could have looked at it and gone, oh, you're basically employed by them, because I was just doing so much, and we just had a great working relationship, and we still do to this day. So I basically just worked more with them. I did some work for one of my old tutors as well, like who had a production company, so I did some bits for him. But it was mainly this kind of one client that I was doing everything for, and that was kind of, so I graduated in 2018, and then basically from 2018 to the end of 2018 to the start of 2019, it was great. And then from there, so my tax year starts and ends in April, basically from April 2019 to April, well, near enough April 2020, where the dreaded COVID hit. Like it was very, it was very, very good, because that was kind of where a bit of a reset came around, like work-wise.
So talking about the COVID, how was it during the COVID? Was there still work? Was it harder? How was it for you?
It was definitely harder. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to branch out a bit, because those first couple of years of working in the industry were great, and this client was great, and I had so much work with them. But then it was when COVID hit, it was like, oh, okay, suddenly if they don't have anything, then I don't have anything. And it was this realization of, oh, I want these as a client, but now, I'm doing this as a profession. Like I need to have more clients so that, when there's not as much for them, then, or something happens in the world that is completely uncontrollable, I'm kind of more in control of what happens. And that was this time. So when I went to university, obviously, like everyone, I was, I remember, I'm not sure if I cringe at it now or I'm impressed with myself, but I remember literally our first day at university, like our tutors were like, oh, like, what have you come for uni for and all this? And like, I think the first thing I said was, oh, I want to win an Oscar for cinematography. And I was like, looking back on it now, it's like cringy 18-year-old Reece, like just trying to like say something impressive. But basically when I got to when COVID hit, like I'd obviously spent a good year and a half, 2 years working within the industry, which was great, but it was the branded content side. And there was this part of me that was like, oh, I still want to experience, the film and TV side and, see what happens with it. And I'd done some EPK bits, some kind of behind the scenes interviews and featurettes on some movies and TV. And, being around the sets and being around these things and all that, I was just like, this is incredible. I need to do a bit more of this. And so then I tried to just look at doing more of that. And I basically ended up working on Holby City for about 6 months. So I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's like a UK, it used to be like a UK kind of soap TV show that ran for like 20 years that was based in like a hospital. It was a spin-off of Casualty, like similar to Grey's Anatomy, if you've heard of that, like a UK version of that. Yeah, so basically that. So I messaged their production coordinator, I think, on or production manager on LinkedIn and was just
Mhm.
like, oh, like here's my CV, like I'd love to do some assistant in that. And so I basically worked as a second AC on that for sometimes daily, sometimes a bit longer,
Mm.
up until the show kind of was finished, which was the December of that year. And then within that also then started doing some dailies for on some other bits and some other TV shows and that kind of stuff, which was great. And I kind of got like it was great because it filled such a hole that I had with work because of everything that had gone on. And that was one avenue where I also just wanted to learn more about camera and learn more about the technical side, because I just have this thing in my head of you can never know too much about that. It is a bit
Mm.
of a rabbit hole, but still it's a worthy rabbit hole to kind of dive down. And so I kind of used that opportunity to learn more of that. Then I realized that the film and TV side wasn't for me, and then kind of focus more on building the clients within the kind of more branded side and like a social side. And then I've kind of hit my sweet spot where that's why I like working. But then obviously the technical knowledge from doing that fed into that so much more that it just helped make me better at my job. So I
Mhm.
just was very grateful for, although I didn't want to stay and want to focus on the film and TV side, it fed into everything else I was doing anyway.
Yeah, I think it's great as from your experience to explore other areas so that it helps you to find out and figure out what suits you the most, what you enjoy the most. And as you said, it helps you to discover the area that you focus on and that you enjoy the most. And just coming back to the TV series, did you get a credit for that?
Annoyingly, I didn't in the end. Like, so there was so the way it would work is you'd basically get there was a bunch of us, and for the show we were called, was it technical assistants rather than second ACs? So it was like
Mhm.
mainly second AC with a bit of kind of helping the grip department and a bit of kind of helping out general camera like and all that. So that's why it was such a helpful role, because you kind of had your fingers in a few pies there. But the way it would work is that you'd get put onto blocks. So a block would be, I think it was 6 weeks of shooting, and that would be, I think, 1 or 2 episodes, and then that would be the end of a block, and then they'd move on to another one. But kind of when I joined, there was already a team of like really good technical assistants there. And so I would kind of do more filling in of like dailies, and there'd be times where they needed someone for like a week or whatever. So I just kept doing that forwards and backwards. And so I was hoping that I would get a credit at the end of it, but I checked the episodes that I worked on and it didn't appear, which was kind of annoying. But I was like,
Yeah.
is what it is, I guess. Yeah.
And can you compare what is it like on the professional shoot like this to university shoot? I don't want to say university because it sounds unprofessional, but what is the difference? Maybe something that surprised you, something that is similar?
I think that's a good question, actually. I think it, like, a lot of the time, when you're shooting something like a student film, like it's very much let's say you've got a director, a DOP, a sound op, and a gaffer. Like every
Mhm.
one of them is someone who's still very much learning to just do that craft. Like within that, so a director's still learning their style, a DOP is still learning loads about light and camera and all that. So you make it work, but it's just kind of, you're still figuring things out as you go along. Then when you're going to get to the industry, obviously everyone who's within that role has the experience to just do that job. Like I feel like within whatever role you're doing, you'll forever learn throughout history, like, and the history of your career. Like Roger Deakins has said that before, where he'll approach a new film and he'll say, I don't really ever know how I'm going to do it, because each thing's different. And
Mhm.
I think that's the thing. So it's just a difference between that initial like level of skill is there, even if you are always kind of learning and progressing through your career. So there's just a bit of a higher level of like efficiency and speed and all that, I guess, and kind of accuracy, which is to be
Mhm.
expected. But yeah, and it's just you kind of just fall into that eventually, and kind of build out yourself up to the point where now the decisions I make in a split second, if that's to do with the shutter speed I'm using or what frame rate I'm shooting at, I'll make that decision without really even thinking about it, just kind of doing it instinctively. Whereas
Mhm.
if this was on a student film, it would kind of be like, okay, I'm going to swap and shoot something at 50 frames per second. Let me just try and remember what shutter that's supposed to be. Oh no, my exposure's changed now. Let me just Google what happens and what I'm supposed to do. I still Google stuff now, but like less so as much as I did then. So yeah, just kind of like a sort of speed level and efficiency level and all that, because the level that people are at to be able to work in the industry is naturally going to be higher than university. So yeah, but that's just the kind of that challenge of taking that next step, I guess.
If you want to boost your online presence, check out our digital marketing agency called Trailblazed. You can also enroll in our Skillshare course called The 10 Tips on How to Succeed in Your Creative Career, which was inspired by the podcast. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter called Creative Spotlight to stay up to date with the show and more. Links are in the show notes. Thanks.
Yeah, and you said that you got the opportunity because you texted someone on LinkedIn. So was it basically you randomly texting someone because you wanted to work on the specific project, or you maybe saw that they are looking for some people to work with camera, or how did you actually make this decision?
So this is one of the things that's so helpful when it comes to networking and keeping good context and all that. So the NFL client that is probably my main client now came from someone that I'd worked with, and she's a great producer, a great editor, and we worked together loads. Another client, I just kind of reached out to her and said, I'm looking to branch out a bit. She knew I was a massive nerd when it came to the NFL, and she knew some people there, and then just so just got that through kind of speaking to people through there. And then the Holby City gig was actually, so I spoke to a DOP who I'd worked with quite a lot throughout the years, and I just kind of said, I'm looking to do a bit more film and TV stuff, and I have no idea how to do a sort of TV specific to this. I have no idea how to do this. Like, can you just give me some advice? And she herself basically had started off on Holby City years ago, and then she just said, she was like, it's a great place to start because you do this role which is called a tech assistant, and you learn this and this and this and all that. And then she said, just reach out to the production coordinator and see if you can find him on LinkedIn and reach out to him. And it was literally as simple as that. I just Googled, Holby City production coordinator, found the guy, messaged him and said, oh, hey. I was like, have I got the right person? He was like, yes, you do. And I went, oh, great. By the way, I'd love to, I'm really looking to do this, like his, all that. And then he asked for my CV. And then, I think it was a couple of weeks later that I started on it. So it was, kind of a good example of why networking is so helpful. And, you can get the most random jobs and, see the same people or the random recommendations from people that you haven't worked with in years. And, it's why it's so important to just sort of keep those connections. Like I've been recommended for shoots where it's been an editor that I worked with like 4 years ago, who then they've just had someone say, oh, have you got a recommendation? It's like, oh, this person. So it's just, this all came from, it was just I sought out work in that time. Like I got a few jobs from Facebook, like for some dailies jobs and all that. But then, then those jobs, it's keeping those connections, which then lead to other jobs. And so it's just that whole networking aspect was kind of how I was pushed in the right direction, basically.
Yeah, the power of networking.
100%. The name of the episode, you got it
there. So after your experience in this TV shows or TV show, then you knew that you want to focus on something different. So have you started looking for working in branded content and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that was basically what I did. It's like it was the Holby City stuff was concurrent with me having that conversation with the producer that I'd worked with a bunch, and just saying, I'm looking for some more clients and all this. And so then, because of that, then I started doing more stuff with the NFL then throughout that part of the year. I'm trying to remember what year we are in right now when we had that conversation.
So after COVID, right? Or before?
Yeah, so 20. Yeah. So I think 20. What year are we at now? 2023, 22. So 21 was the first year I worked for the NFL. So I'd had that conversation, and then basically, through COVID and all this, had tried to kind of branch out a bit, and then ended up what was it? 2021, Yeah, we're in 2024. I'm getting mixed up with the years because it's like the first couple of weeks of January. I basically, that was basically it. I kind of had spoken to her and said, I want to branch out a bit. Then did a lot more of the film and the TV stuff with those dailies and working on Bobby City. And then after that was like, okay, I actually am quite happy with the work I do within the kind of more branded side, so I'll focus on that. And so that was then I was having those conversations with people saying, "Oh, I want to branch out, I want to do this," and so just got various recommendations from people and kind of built my client base from there. And then obviously you do that first job for them, and then they're like, "Okay, we've this works." Then you do that second job, and it's like, "Okay, this works." And once you've done 6 or 7 jobs and you've built that trust, then a year passes and you've built more trust, you just get bigger projects. And that's kind of how it's worked for me, sort of from the start going through up until now.
Yeah. And working with NFL, was it coincidence, or were you always interested in NFL, or did you get interested because of that?
Oh no, I've watched every Super Bowl since 2012.
Okay.
And I used to play rugby. And when I was playing rugby, like it was basically just my entire life for a period of about 6-7 years. Like I played for Essex for a while and all that. Then I got injured. It wasn't like a bad injury or anything, but it just stopped me from playing for a little while. And in the process, it was in a weird kind of same sort of time that I started to like the film industry and like shooting. And it was a case of I was just like, well, actually, there's no chance, there's no guarantee that I'll ever do rugby as a career. I also don't want to do this as a career. So, I've kind of just switched the passion to focus in on, film and TV and all that and, camera and that. And then in the process of doing that, because I've just spent so long committed to this sport, I was like, I want to watch something that's similar, but not exactly the same. I spoke to my brother and he was like, oh, I've started watching this like consistently, the new season's coming up, you should give it a go. And started watching it and then just became quite obsessed with it. Because me and my brother are very similar in terms of we do completely different jobs, but we've just always been very stats orientated and like numbers orientated. And so with the NFL, literally everything is broken down to within an inch of its life. So I just kind of bought into that quite quickly. And then, just sort of went from there. And then, it was just by chance that, that was 2016 was the first year I was watching it. And then obviously 4 years later, I'd worked with someone for a while who had basically worked at ESPN for 10 years. And in the process of her working at ESPN for 10 years, she then met some people who worked and basically did the shooting for anything NFL UK and Europe related. And then she just introduced me to them. And then, it just kind of went from there. So it was just a sort of luck of meeting people and then just meeting the right people and all that. And then kind of going from there and taking it. But it definitely helps being a massive nerd about the sport and shooting it at the same time. Yeah.
And I guess people can see and appreciate if you are passionate about it. If you don't go there just, oh, this is my job, I need to film it. But actually, if you enjoy it, I think it's different. And it's great that you found, despite your injury, to work with the sport that you were passionate about. It's good, yeah. And out of curiosity, have you started playing NFL again, or you are behind the camera only?
No, so I'd love to. That was always the thing when annoyingly, when I stopped playing rugby, I then went to university.
Oh, sorry, I said NFL. I meant rugby.
It's a good. They're similar enough. It's understandable. So when I stopped playing, and then after that went to university, I went to the first training session for like the uni team. And then basically the games collided with a like weekly studio session I'd have for like my course. And it was like, it's kind of pointless going to university and paying all this money to then like swap this around or skip it. And so I was just like, oh, it's fine, I'll just leave it. And then I always had the mind of, oh, I'll finish university and then start, playing rugby and whatnot. And then I got into, American football and was like, oh, I'd love to do this. I'd love to at least try it. And then because I became freelance and obviously in a physical job, it was just the kind of risk of injury meant that it's just never really been something I've been able to kind of dive into at all. But I'm okay. I'm okay watching it from afar and kind of like shooting kind of gives you enough of like a relation to it that it kind of scratches that sporting itch, I guess.
Yeah. So can we dive more into you working on NFL?
Of course.
I don't know where to start. Maybe what were your initial projects and bring us along the way to now, to your projects now.
Okay, so the first project I ever worked on with them, it was the summer of 2021, and it was basically this thing that was all about each year the NFL plays usually 3 games over in London,
Hmm.
and they're like actual regular season games that count towards the normal NFL season. They're just played in the UK instead. And in the June of, I think it was the June of 2021, I basically did my first project with the NFL, which was a game which is all about how the London series is made, and all the kind of how it goes from being nothing to then the stadium and how they bring the teams over and all this. So it was just like a bunch of interviews and B-roll. One of the hotels that the players were staying at, where they built like a practice field for the players and all this. It was kind of like a pre-process thing. And that was kind of the sort of first thing. And then I can't remember if there was anything between there and then the first London game, which was like a few months later, because the games are usually October time. And so then the next project that I did was basically working the 2 London games. And so it was a role called an LCC, which is basically live content correspondent or local content creator. It has kind of alternating names.
Hmm.
And so it was basically you shoot everything that happens in the day. So it's a pre-game, you shoot the players who arrive, then you shoot them on the field, and then you go from there and you shoot everything in the game. And basically, whenever you get a big play like a touchdown or a turnover or a cool shot where the players interacted with a member of the crowd or the players interacted with each other, you'd send that via a Ethernet port on the side of the pitch to the teams and to the NFL. Then they'd throw it out to basically wherever they wanted to use it. And so I did that for basically the two London games that year, and then they went well. It was all good. They were like, "Oh, yeah, we'll see you again next year." Great. I was like, "Okay, cool. That's perfect." Did those games, and then after that, I kind of in my head thought, "Oh, because those 2 games are done, I probably won't have too much like work NFL wise for a while." And it was literally the week after I started shooting some stuff with the same client for the NFL Academy. The NFL Academy is basically a team of like the best kind of young athlete American football players across Europe, basically. And they put together and they train at Loughborough Uni and study there, and it's with the hope of taking them from there to get in scholarships to American teams and all that. So I started doing stuff with them, and then there was more stuff after that, and it was kind of just various things throughout that year, and then the next year, and kind of shorter projects where players would come over, and then you do bits with them. Like we did a project which was with one of the Saints players, to New Orleans Saints, and then we took him to Goodwood Festival. I did this whole thing of him at Goodwood Festival. As those are kind of little projects peppered to podcasts and stuff like that. And then that brings us into, wait, what year are we at? 2020, 2021, 2022. Yeah, no, 2021 was definitely the year. I was just getting confused with when the London games were and all that kind of stuff. Because we're in 2024. Yeah. So 2022 did the kind of stuff for them. Did the London games again that year, and I kind of I'd started to kind of really get into the whole. The NFL is all about the stories, and it was how to. I wanted to improve how you do the story of a game day, or you do the story of all this, and within my work, instead of being just cam op, I wanted to focus more on shooting with a sort of story in mind and editing and all that. And so I started to do kind of more of that, and then did the games that year. Was over in Arizona for shooting pre-Super Bowl last year.
And sorry, so you went there to Arizona?
Yeah. So 2023 now. It was over in Arizona. Basically, I did. The NFL took one of there was an influencer, like an NFL influencer, who won this competition, and they took her over there. We did like a bunch of stuff with her for like Super Bowl week and all that, which was really fun. It was really cool. But yeah, I kind of was with those games that year in 2022. I was like, I want to get better at shooting the sport. I want to do it to the level that I see all of these American shooters do, which is just insane. And like the level of how they do it and how they shoot and how they track the ball and how they shoot the story stuff, like you watch it and just go, this is the type of stuff I want to do, and like on a consistent basis. And so I kind of had this mind going forward from there of, I want to be better at shooting the sport. I want to be better at shooting just in general throughout everything I'm doing, with a bit more of a narrative in mind and all this. And that's where I've kind of moved from being sort of just cow up to kind of more of like shooting PD, which is what I do for a lot of projects now. And the most recent season, which I'd say is probably my most successful in terms of like game shot and all that. Has also been where I've shot, which I literally got back from yesterday,
Still
a series
fresh.
of like, still fresh in the jet lag. I swear my eyes are properly bloodshot as hell. But yeah, we basically took 3 sets of like creators over to 3 different American states and basically tried to show this NFL journey of these different creators coming from, know nothing about the sport to then at the end of it knowing lots more about the sport. And so we did, well, the first one was in Nashville, the second was in Dallas, and the one that I got back from about 24 hours ago was one in San Francisco, which is great. So it was, it was literally the perfect marriage of the story element within the sport and the sort of producer director side of building that narrative, as well as also shooting the sport and tying those 2 things together. And that's kind of what I've tried to make more of my focus now is, doing more of those projects with the hope that eventually moving to the States and doing, more NFL stuff kind of on a like longer term basis over there, because it's the stuff I do in the UK is great and it's amazing and I love it. But obviously because there's only 3-4 games basically in Europe a season, it's hard to be able to have, be able to work on, you can't work on a game week in, week out for that reason. So it's just kind of all this back in my head of I love the stuff I do and I want to do more of it basically.
And these projects you filmed in the US, in San Francisco, is it going to be like videos?
Yeah, so it's basically the longer form one is a little like doc that'll go on YouTube, so the NFL UK YouTube. And then there's a bunch of reels and stuff that I cut out of it for, the UK socials, and then the people we've shot with post and all that. And it's basically kind of this series on YouTube at the moment. Are
you also editing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, really? So when is it going to be released?
I'm aiming for, so basically the way the NFL season works is that this one's for the San Francisco 49ers, and their team wrapped up something which is called the 1 seed. So they were basically the best team in their conference, which means that there's 4 weeks of playoffs, but they skip the first round and they play the worst team remaining in the second round of the playoffs. So they don't play this weekend. Now it's the NFL playoffs, third weekend of Jan. But they'll play the week after to trying to get it kind of for around then to kind of, before they play their game then. So yeah, I've got a week and a half, I think, to kind of do it.
Yeah, cool. So maybe we'll be able to share it when the podcast goes out, and if not,
hopefully,
I will share it on Instagram for sure. So because I'm curious, and so that people can watch it as well.
Yeah, no, definitely, that sounds great. Thanks.
And also, I'm curious if they bring you over to the US. Is it that they trust you, and because of your skills, that it's still better for them than to find someone actually from the US? Because I can imagine it's not easy to bring someone from Europe to the US to film it. If it wasn't easier just to hire someone from there.
I think there's 2 things. There's one which is because NFL UK itself is its own kind of like entity. So that's like sort of more of a specific, like, of the people who I do the work that I do for. So it's for NFL UK. And then sometimes when I've done a lot of the actual games that I've shot within London, those have been directly for the NFL. It's just one of these things that's a bit of like a, umbrella of different people. And sometimes you shoot stuff for both, sometimes you shoot for one. So because this is directly for NFL UK, that's why it's something that I've done rather than just finding sort of like a local op in the States or something. So I think that's one element of it, of who it's for. But then the other element is I like to think it's a trust thing as well, because that's the thing. Like, it's I've been lucky in terms of the start of my career, where the first client I had was, they took a big leap on me. They could have hired me, this 20-year-old student, for a couple of shoots who was terrible to work with, really unprofessional. That like it's that doesn't happen often, or I haven't had experienced that myself like often, but it's more of just it's still a leap of faith regardless. And I think that when you have a new client, there's still that thing of, okay, we can see your work's good, but we don't know you at all. So it's happened now where it's kind of like I've worked so much with them and various people, then the NFL and with NFL UK and all that, like you kind of just build those rapports over time. So instead of it being like, oh, let's get that freelancer Reece in, it's just, let's get Reece in because we know him and we trust him and he's done this before. So that's kind of where it's kind of a combination of both of it's such a big company, the NFL, that you have the kind of American side and the NFL film side and all the docs and bits like that, and then you've got there's an NFL Germany, NFL Brazil, like there's such a touch to like across the world. So because these projects have obviously been for NFL UK and for promoting the sport, because that's what we try to do basically with everything we shoot, is it's trying to grow the sport in the UK so that there's fellow other people that nerd out to it rather than just me and my group of friends.
Yeah. And although I honestly I don't know much about NFL, but although it's not big either in UK or Europe, as far as I know, in America it's a big deal, right? NFL.
Yeah, it's massive in the States. Like I was reading a graphic that came up on Instagram the other day of, I think it was 97 out of 100 broadcasts. It was either across America or in the world. I think it was across America, which obviously is quite big. And they were 97 of the 100 top broadcasts were all NFL games. So there was one which was there was like a political thing. Then I think there was the Academy Awards, and then something else. I'm not sure, but yeah, like just to show how big, an average NFL game might get between 10 and 20 million viewers, and an average NBA game is around 6 or 7 or whatnot. I wouldn't quote me on that, but it's just basically to show that there's a discrepancy, and it's getting a lot bigger in the UK. Like that's the thing. It's like now, I say you get 3 games in the UK, and like this most recent season there was 3 games in the UK and 2 in Germany, and next year there'll likely be 3 in the UK, at least 1 in Germany, and there's definitely 1 in Brazil. So it's kind of it's not even just getting built kind of throughout America, it's kind of building up even more throughout the UK and the kind of world off the side of that. There's been talks of having games in Spain and having games in Japan and like all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm hoping that kind of the growth of it in the UK and building those connections kind of within the NFL and within NFL UK as well, it will kind of be like, as the sport grows, then there could be a big attempt to be a big part of kind of helping with that growth. Because as someone who loves the sport anyway and follows the sport just normally, to then be able to shoot with it, like you said earlier, it gives you that kind of enhanced passion for the work you do. And when you look at something, instead of getting a brief that says, oh, we want to grow the sport, already in your head you're like, yeah, I just want to do that anyway, so this is great.
Yeah, and I think another great proof of how popular it is when you look at the numbers of Super Bowl. And when I heard, for example, how much the adverts are during the Super Bowl, how much it costs just to get your advert shown, those numbers are just crazy.
So it's in the millions for like very short, like 30 seconds, if that, like amounts, ain't it? So yeah, no, it's a big sport, and hopefully getting bigger in the UK as well.
Yeah, and so tell us about what, as I said, I don't know much, but I'm curious, what's your favorite team and why? Who's your favorite player and why?
For my sins, my team is the Las Vegas Raiders. They used to be in Oakland and they moved to Las Vegas a few years back. But yeah, basically the year that I started watching the sport, like fully on like a consistent basis, they had quite a young team. They had some really good players. They had a lot of history. They made the playoffs that year for the first time in like 13, 14 years. And so it was just one of these teams that I could kind of buy into. And there's always kind of a story with the team and all that. And so I've just kind of followed them ever since. Been to a couple of games in Vegas of theirs to see as well. So yeah, favorite player, it was a guy called Hunter Renfrow, who's basically this wide receiver for the Raiders, but he's kind of not really been used much over the last 2 seasons. So there's, as I said, the thing with NFL is just the amount of stories that there are. So for the Niners, for instance, there's a quarterback called Brock Purdy, and he was drafted. He was the last pick in the draft last year. So generally, players kind of picked in the opening rounds of the draft are slated to do better, or at least have a higher level of potential than players going later in the draft, and especially quarterbacks. And the guy Brock Purdy basically was picked last pick of the draft. There were some injuries to the starting quarterbacks on the 49ers, which meant that he stepped in and basically just had a historical run as a rookie. And came a game from making the Super Bowl, and then his second year of the league, he's just balled out and been fantastic. And so as the first player that kind of come to mind with the 49ers fresh in my head as well, like he's a fantastic guy to follow, and it's a fantastic story. And I suppose it's the kind of a friend of mine that I talk to a lot about the NFL, like his thing with the NFL is the stories. Like he says, there's always a story. There's, from kind of every player and their public profile, all that, there's always something. And so I think as anyone who hasn't watched it, or maybe looks at it as a sport and goes, it's very stop start and all that, it's kind of just like you watch a movie for 3 hours because you buy into the narrative of it. So it's a similar kind of thing with that. So yeah, but I'm not sure about favorite player, but that's the first guy that spring to mind with my head so fully into the 49ers at the moment.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know any of those names, so I will need to do homework afterwards.
Oh yeah, I should have gone for something more like Tom Brady or something, just because at least someone's heard of it, rather than going, this is the problem. Like, someone asked me a question, instead of it just being a simple thing, it's like, oh no, I'll go into the full nerd out mode of like this and the narrative and all that.
No, I like it. Afterwards, I will have a look. But did you say Riders?
The Raiders, yeah. Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it. I was like, Raiders, and I like to listen to Ice Cube, and Ice Cube, the American rapper, I think he supports them. And actually, I've seen, I don't know why, but like lots of people with merchandise of Raiders. I think actually I have a T-shirt as well of Raiders. So I don't know why, but they seem to be very popular, even like on New Eras or T-shirts or everywhere. So
I think it's the NWA, wasn't it, that Ice Cube was with Origin?
Yes,
I think
yes.
I haven't seen Straight Outta Compton, but I think that kind of really launched up the like apparel, basically, and like merchandise of the Raiders, and ever since in like popular culture it's been quite common. So you'll see, like, you'll want to pass a Primark, and sometimes they'll have like a Raiders jacket, or I mean, it was funny actually, because I remember when I was at university, obviously I was supporting them then, and wasn't aware of like the kind of NWA reference and like how that had helped kind of with the Raiders and people, like you say, with Ice Cube and that. And I remember like a friend's friend, I was just chatting to them, and I was like, oh, he's got a Raiders thing on his head, like hat. That's awesome. I was like, oh yeah, so you're a Raiders fan, man? And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, Raiders fan, you got that? He's like, oh no, he's like, I just bought this at a shop, like, I don't know. I was like, oh, fair enough. There's a hard lesson on that day, but yeah. So no, I think that's the kind of reference, and it's cool. Like, it's black, white, you can't go wrong, or silver and black. You can't go wrong with that. So it makes me happy to hear you might have a Raiders shirt though.
And
there's some side there. Yeah.
I'm probably one of those people that I'm not gonna lie, I don't support them because I don't watch it. But if I was about to choose a team, I would probably choose them because of Ice Cube and because of the references in rap, in American rap. So I kind of like them. So.
That's good. Yeah. You do get, like, especially as a British fan, like sometimes you get the most wild stories of why someone's like supported a team, because obviously not living, like, I don't live in Nevada or anything. I didn't live in California when I started supporting them as Oakland. So you find your little connections. Sometimes it is literally as loose for someone from like England or Europe or whatever, where they go, oh yeah, no, I just had a Raiders t-shirt, and so I was like, I may as well start supporting them. And then 10 years down the line, you've supported them for 10 years and all that.
Yeah. And also, I'm curious, why did actually NFL? Why it actually started in Europe? Was it just to increase the awareness of the brand of the sport?
I think so. Like the first game I believe that was in the UK was 2008. It was a Giants game. I can't remember who they played. But I think there was just, I think as things have gone from the 90s and so on to the way the internet is and that now, suddenly actually being able to watch sports from different countries has become a lot easier. Like, even with me, like, I have various ways of just like various subscriptions, so that when a game happens, I can wake up in the morning and put it on. 25 years ago, it was much harder to do that, and so I suppose it kind of, in that more digital age, it was bringing teams over. It was just like, okay, let's see how this works. And just every year, the games are just a resounding success. So it's kind of gone from, that single game to then, 2 to 3. Actually, let's see where else we can do this. And, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, they sell out, or at least basically near full capacity for, these games, which is great.
I was really surprised because I, during university, I used to work in a pub in central London. And sometimes I saw tourists with NFL jerseys, and obviously you talk to them, and you can notice from the accent that they were Americans. And I didn't know why. And then I found out that they flew from America to watch NFL there. And I don't know, I couldn't probably understand, why would you fly over the whole world to watch it? But then it kind of makes sense if you are a big supporter and you can connect it with holidays in London, I think it's a great experience. And when someone is into it that much that they flew over the whole world to support it, I think it's really nice and might be a great experience in general.
Yeah, you get some very big fans who, like, as I say, I've been to Vegas twice. It was with a part of like trips. The first time I went, I then traveled down to Tampa and did Tough Mudder with a few American mates of mine. So that was interesting. And then the second time I went, it was like a kind of road trip that me and a friend of mine started in San Francisco, funnily enough, and then went down to Vegas and then saw a game and all that. So, but like you said, it's almost like the reverse of that is if you're American, and obviously a lot of Americans really like British culture as well, and like British history, like being able to go, oh, I'm going to go support my team and see my team play, and also just enjoy like a week in London. Like it's kind of it's a good selling point. Like kind of either way. Like I love America and all that, but I'd quite happily travel to Denver to see a Denver game, whereas maybe I wouldn't necessarily have an interest in Denver if it wasn't for that. So there's kind of slightly pockets of random places that I'd go to because of the kind of connection to the sport, and I guess that's the thing. It's like I did one of the games recently. So there was the 3 in London, and there was one in Frankfurt in Germany. And it's like, so I got to explore Frankfurt for a bit, and Frankfurt's a place that I probably wouldn't have been like top of my list to go to, but you kind of see these places because of that sports connection, which is which is great. And like I say, in terms of actual tourism in England, obviously it's a fantastic thing if you've got X amount of fans coming over from different places.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If you can match both your job that you enjoy and maybe explore a local culture and see the place. A question I'm curious about. When you film something, for example, the video that you are just working on and editing, and it goes on their YouTube, and then probably thousands or millions of people watch it, what's the feeling like? How do you feel? It must be awesome.
It's a funny thing because like I've been asked kind of a similar question before because like the last 2 of these projects, they've had tens of thousands of views on YouTube, which is great. And one of the clips I got, it was a shot of basically where Miami played Kansas City in Germany. One of the Miami players used to be on Kansas City, and I was in the right place and got this moment of basically him saying hi to the coach and saying hi to the quarterback of Kansas City and all that, which ended up getting about 3 million watches on Instagram, like through like the NFL page. And I spoke to one of the guys I worked with in Dallas, like as a creative himself. He just kind of said, he was like, oh, how does it feel like, when something that you've put out, that's something that you've shot kind of gets that. And I just said, to be honest, I was like, because it just like it's just kind of, because my job is to kind of get the shot and get the content and all that, like it's great, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. Like it's like I see kind of, I go 13,000 15,000 people have seen it, that's cool. 3 million have seen it, okay, that's cool. But it's more of just like, I hope that the people I've seen it can kind of just like enjoy it, and if I've put something out that many people can enjoy, that's the kind of cool part I get from it. Because like, as it being a passion, like not with just the NFL, but with anything else I shoot, like because my passion is within this, if I then do something where, I speak to the client 2 months later and they go, oh, everyone loved that and everyone really enjoyed it, I'm like, that's awesome, because I'm getting to basically live my dream and do my job, which is my passion. And if in the process of that I'm shooting things that I enjoy shooting, but then people get something out of, then that's great. If 5 people watch it, or 10,000 people watch it, whatever, like I like the fact that hopefully those people are getting something out of it. It's cool to see, when you put the hard work into something and see that people enjoy it and and take something from it, like especially these bigger projects where it's like a couple of weeks editing and quite a hard, very intense period of shooting, and you're kind of figuring out as you go along. So yeah, it's quite cool, I suppose, is the way I'd describe it.
Yeah. And just a few last questions. What are your next maybe aspirations or goals, or where do you see yourself in a few years?
That's a good question. I think so. So I'm going to be doing over in Vegas for the Super Bowl this year again, which is going to be awesome. So kind of a similar type of project to what I've just been doing, but yeah, in the kind of lead up to the Super Bowl, which is going to be cool. And then I think, to be honest, it's kind of just a mix of kind of building more clients and doing more of these kind of projects. Like
Mhm.
I found it was like a weird thing that kind of clicked in my brain where it's like, okay, the matching of not just shooting stuff, but shooting stuff where, you've got a narrative of, okay, we're going into this piece where we want to show the journey of these two people from not knowing about the NFL to, knowing about it, or, whether it's shooting something for a client that's a bit more corporate-y of, oh, we want to show how much people enjoy our products. Like suddenly, instead of it being just, I'm just going to shoot some pretty looking shots, is, oh, I want to show this narrative, and I want to, think of how it work in an edit in my head and all that. And so I want to do more of the kind of shooting PD work, which is, as you're going along, asking the people the questions, what you think about this, like what are we doing here, and coming up with those ideas and being a bit more connected to like the projects I do, rather than camera operating. You're more kind of just strictly focused on the operation side. And but it's nice now because like I've spoken with my clients and kind of said, and with the work I've done recently, like I'm trying to sort of say, like, I'm well up for doing more of the kind of shooting PD work and all that. So more transitioning and doing the kind of, well, not transitioning, but keeping on doing the work I'm doing and doing more of that like sports doc stuff, and doing it with the NFL and other sports and in different ways, and kind of focusing on doing the kind of shooting PD work within that kind of documentary side, because I just find myself connecting to the projects and being able to kind of dive really headfirst into it, and come up with ideas of the way. Like when we were in San Francisco, and the team I worked with were amazing, and they already had a bunch of ideas, and one of the ideas I threw out off the back of that was just, oh, why don't we try and do Golden Gate Bridge at sunset and shoot a bit there. And then so we shot Golden Gate, we took the guys there, shot a really nice thing there, and like it's just those little ideas that you kind of come up with. Whereas if it was just kind of treating the project as a kind of cam up and that's it, then I kind of be like, okay, look at schedule, that's what we're shooting, job done. And I like to be able to dive in, and it's a rewarding when you work with like great people, like I've been able to at all these projects and throughout my career. And when you've got this like common goal of wanting to do something great, and that's what you're trying to achieve and focus on. And I feel like now that as I said, I try and learn more and improve every single year, basically, or every time I'm doing anything. And I feel like that I've got to a point where I'm able to kind of go, okay, my skill set is this, but I think I can, as well as the shooting, do more of that kind of stuff, and I can give value to projects by kind of using my experience and the bits I've gleaned from different producers I've worked with and different directors to kind of work within that. So yeah, a lot more of if I was doing more of this kind of work that I've been doing recently, which is the kind of, shooting and editing those kind of short doc style stuff, or longer docs eventually in the future, like that'd be great, basically.
Yeah, that sounds, what can I say? It sounds awesome. It sounds exciting, and fingers crossed that it works out. Especially as it's
Thank you.
something that you enjoy watching and working on it. It's just great.
I appreciate that.
So, can you tell us where people can follow you, if you want people to follow you or to watch your work?
So my website is www.reecebeale.com. That's got a bunch of the projects and bits I've worked on, and my CV, if you really want to take a look at that, just because I reference it because it's on there. Then my Instagram, which is probably the most active like social media platform I'm on, is at ReeceBeale757. And I also have a photography Instagram that I post stuff on, which is at Reece Beale, and that's kind of my main hub of things that I'm with. And then I'd say there's quite a few. The most recent projects I've done with the Nashville and Dallas and all that are all on NFL UK's YouTube. And there's usually some random thing that I've shot kind of appearing on their socials at some point. So that's kind of the main places. Yeah. And off the back of that, actually, like as well, like I'm always more than happy, like as a person who, when I started within the industry, I kind of had no idea, like when it came to rates, when it came to like how to kind of approach things, and just sort of figured it out. And so I'm always very much like, if there's ever any someone who needs a bit of advice or pushing in the right direction, or is just trying to figure things out, then feel free to message me, because I definitely don't know everything within this industry, and there's people who have been in this industry for 15, 20 years who, I aspire to be at that level, and, aspire to have that level of knowledge in 10 years' time. But in the process I've at least gleaned some nice things over the years, and figured stuff out and found kind of a good idea of things that work, so I can impart at least my level of knowledge onto people. So if anyone listens to this and is like, oh, actually, I'd kind of like to do this, or I'd kind of just want a bit of advice on this part of the industry, then feel free to message. I'm always more than happy. I'll always reply.
Yeah, I will share the links, and also we'll check your social media, because based on our conversations, I have big expectations.
No, yeah, that's the bad. I've set myself up for for failure now. Yeah.
So the last question: is there something that you want to share, or something I forgot to ask?
No, I think it's been really nice, to be honest. Yeah, I think that it's for me, like, it's for anyone who wants to get into this industry, whether it's the more of the side that I'm in, which is the branded content side and like the sports side, or if it's more of broadcast or whatnot. Like, I think the thing is, if you have the right mindset, there's an area that works for you. Like, if you don't want to do anything that I do and want to do more film and TV, you can find something there. If you don't want to do film and TV and do more of what I do, if you want to do more documentary, or there's something. And it's just kind of, I think the realization for me, especially since working with the NFL and working on something that I never in my wildest dreams, when I just finished uni and was kind of working things out, thought I'd be in this position, is to just kind of that classic of like, you can make it happen if you make those connections, if you talk with the right people, if you graft and put the hard work in. Like, you can get to a point where you're doing the kind of things you want to do, and that is such a rewarding industry to be a part of. And the relationships and the people and all that are great. And so if there's people from Middlesex Uni studying film who are kind of figuring things out, or people from any uni, to be honest, who are just trying to find whatever their avenue is, there's as long as you've got the right mindset and the right kind of work ethic and all that, all those classic kind of hallmark type tick boxes, like as long as you've got all those things, you'll find your place in the industry and you'll be fine.
Yep. Thank you, Reece. I think it's a perfect note to finish. So thank you so much. I wish you good luck in your career, and we'll be looking forward to seeing your little documentary on YouTube for NFL.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks very much, man. It's been really fun talking. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, get in touch to provide your feedback, or share any ideas for future guests. Thank you, and see you soon.